Our coverage continues here on News Nation. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. We are following that breaking news tonight, the live look. Want to take you back out to Tucson, Arizona once again, as investigators say they are aware of a new message regarding Nancy Guthrie. It is day 6 since her disappearance. The FBI just putting out a statement moments ago. It reads in part, the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department are aware of a new message regarding Nancy Guthrie. Investigators, they say, are actively inspecting the information provided in the message for its authenticity. As that was happening, and as we give you this live look there in Arizona, our Brian Enton was reporting that all of a sudden, investigators sort of closed off the scene there, moved reporters back. Brian's back with us before the cameras tonight. Brian, there's a lot of activity out there in the last 30 minutes or so. What can you tell us as it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, 4 o'clock where you are out there this evening?
Yeah, Blake, something changed significantly here in the last 30 minutes because we have been moved back at least a block from where Nancy Guthrie's house is. Let me show you. You can see these sheriff's deputies have blocked off the road, and about a half a block beyond them is where Nancy's house is. And they came in very quickly. And let me tell you, I mean, there was a lot of media down there. There's probably 300 people down there. And they came in, they said, everybody's got to get out now. Pack up your stuff. Everybody has got to leave now. And I said, well, what's going on? And they said, it's for investigative reasons. Everybody's got to leave. So everybody starts frantically trying to pack up. And while we're packing up, I saw several FBI teams coming in, and it looked like their evidence, like response unit, pickup trucks, a van. The windows were really tinted, but I kind of leaned in as they were trying to move me out of the way, and I could see the FBI logos on their shirts, and then they pulled into Nancy Guthrie's driveway. So clearly there is something new happening. There's something new that they want to look at the house. And it's so significant that not only have they roped off the house, which we've seen them do twice now, but they have closed off the entire block. And the timing, as you just mentioned, is interesting because this is around the same exact time that we found out about this second communication. There is a second note that has been sent to a Tucson TV station related to Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah, and Brian, you know this from covering stories for years. I know it as well. When you show up to a scene, oftentimes law enforcement will tell you, go here, go there, and you do it immediately, obviously. But that happens sort of day of or hour of or moment of. This is different in that it's 6 days after the fact, but I guess the change here is this note, and it makes you wonder, it makes you believe, I guess I should say, that they are taking this new note incredibly seriously.
Yes, and is there something in the note that caused them to need to come back here and you know, make it a crime scene again and look around again? Remember, the last note had 2 deadlines, one for yesterday, 5 p.m., the other for Monday, and we were told as of yesterday there was no more communication. Well, that has apparently now changed if this new note is from the same person. And remember that Savannah Guthrie and her family said that they wanted proof of life. They wanted something more before they made. It's ultimately their decision about whether they're going to pay this ransom. We don't know the dollar amount. The FBI won't tell us what the dollar amount is, but they are the ones who have to make the decision, the FBI has said. And they, in their video, said they wanted more proof. Is this new note perhaps the proof that they've been waiting for?
Brian Enton, hang with me here, please. Come on in. James Gagliano, former FBI supervisory special agent, with us. And keep Brian up with me if you can, please. You've been listening to Brian's reporting. We're watching the scene there, James, in Tucson, Arizona. What do you make of it?
Blake, I'm still gobsmacked at how quickly the crime scene was released. This isn't a house where you've got a bunch of young children, they need to get back to their lives and that stuff. I don't understand that. Now, it's easy for me to sit here looking at the house in my comfortable couch and say, well, law enforcement should be doing this or not doing that. But in this instance, this is the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time they've had to go back to that house. It's a 3,100 square foot house. That is a crime scene. There's still dried blood spatter material on the front porch. I'm shocked by that. Now, this new note, I'm learning about it, obviously, as we are right now on News Nation. And could this be some type of proof of life? Of course. But here, lastly, this is what boggles the mind. These abductors are doing everything that kidnappers don't do. They're going through the media. They're not back-channeling to the family. And that's what makes this odd.
James, hang there. Brian, let's bring Brian in as well. To James's point about how quickly they released the crime scene there, or how close that they were able to bring you in, or how close they were able to let you get there. Did that surprise you at all, now that they've pushed you back?
Yes, I mean, it surprised me that they released the crime scene so quickly. Remember, we were able to walk up to the front steps and see the blood for ourselves just a couple of days after Nancy went missing.
I was
then
shocked,
when they came
Brian,
back and created
Brian,
another crime scene.
Yeah, you've done this long enough. When you were able to do that, I was shocked that you were able to get that close.
Yeah, I mean, they opened everything back up. I'm surprised it hasn't been like this for the last week. I mean, you know how it is when you cover big cases and there's ongoing investigations and crimes, they keep the media back. We've been set up right in front of the house for days, and it hasn't seemed to be a problem. But now, for whatever reason, and I don't think this has to do with the media. I saw the FBI coming in. I saw the FBI trucks. I think they're moving us out now because they're trying to make room for these FBI resources to come in, and they don't want the media right there in front of the house, right in front of the driveway anymore. Something is and they told me this is for investigative reasons. Something is happening right now with the investigation behind the scenes that is causing the FBI to go back to the house.
Yeah, this is from the Sheriff's Department. I'm looking down. It's just hit my phone. Detectives continue to conduct follow-up at the home and in the surrounding neighborhood. The roadway in front of the home is currently restricted to provide investigators the space needed to complete their work, as Brian and James have been talking about. James, and Brian, stay with me here. So it's 4:07 out there in Tucson tonight, and there's clearly been some sort of a reason, as Brian has described, James, for the FBI to go back in, or at least at this moment. What happens from here? What do you believe happens from here, James?
So let's unpack this as far as what the FBI's role is. Number one, law enforcement and the FBI will never tell a family that has a family member abducted or kidnapped what to do. We are merely in an advisory capacity. Number two, we provide resources. What are those resources? Well, as of yesterday, the Critical Incident Response Group has been moved in. Now, I was once a member of that unit. What does that unit contain? It contains a tactical helo program. It contains behavioral specialists and analysts. It contains a crisis negotiation team. They're moving those folks in right now to continue to do this work, which, again, to Brian's point, I don't understand why they released the crime scene so soon. And look, Blake, lastly, kidnappings happen for two reasons: for profit or for revenge. In this instance, we still don't even know if this was a targeted attack. And again, the way that the kidnappers are working, they're putting out multiple deadlines. When you put out multiple deadlines, there are usually negative consequences if you don't meet the first one, you don't meet the second one. This is the oddest kidnapping that I've seen in my 25 years in the FBI, and I've studied this business since the Lindbergh baby kidnapping back in 1932.
So, James, what I'm taking away from you here clearly is that you haven't seen anything like this, right, in your career. You just said it. So what do you think, if you were there right now in Tucson, what do you think they're doing, and what do you think is happening? Or is sort of what would normally happen kind of get thrown out of the window in this case?
Yeah. So let's understand for the viewers, Pima County, the sheriff's office, they have the lead on this. The FBI can't come in as the 500-pound gorilla on the block and say, we're in charge. We've been asked to assist. It is a kidnapping case, but as of yet, there's been no proof that anybody has crossed over state lines, which would give us federal jurisdiction. Blake, understand this. I worked in Mexico City as a legal attaché for the FBI for 2 years. Where this location is up on the screen, 60 miles north of our southwestern border. And remember, if you look at the timeline, lastly, if you look at the timeline from 10 o'clock that night until noon the next day, that's 14 hours that the person or persons involved in this could have gone anywhere in the country or outside the country.
Brian, you know, to James's point there that the FBI sort of can't be the 500-pound gorilla, what are you seeing from local law enforcement?
I'm sorry, Blake, can you ask me that one more time?
No,
I couldn't hear you for a second.
I would say James was saying basically the FBI can't go in there and direct everything, and I know we're focusing right now on the FBI because you saw them go in, but it makes me curious as to what you're seeing from the local law enforcement there, how much that presence from the local side has been beefed up.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of local deputies. I've gotten a sense over the last couple of days since the last press conference, Blake, that the FBI is more in control now of the investigation. One of the things we learned last night when we talked to the sheriff was, you know, he said, I still can't believe this, but the sheriff said that he didn't even know about the Savannah Guthrie video, the first one she made with her siblings, until his wife said, oh, look, I saw this on Facebook. Meanwhile, we knew that the FBI was with her, helping her craft the video, and it was all very, very orchestrated, which was very telling to me that the sheriff is not really actually in the loop, and it seems like the FBI really is kind of in control for the most part now.
Want to bring in Jesse Weber, host of Jesse Weber Live. Jesse, you're watching, you're following, you're listening. You're taking in all this new information. What do you make of it?
So first of all, let me agree with Brian. We talked about it on the show last night. I had the same conclusion about the FBI spearheading this, which, by the way, is a good thing. The FBI has the resources to tackle this kind of case, kidnapping cases. They have the technology to verify a lot of that cellular information, digital information, and also to be able to verify the authenticity of ransom notes and whatever this purported message is. I mean, one of the biggest questions I had was, I thought it was strange to provide two different deadlines for the ransom, and after that one passed yesterday and there was no word, including any word of proof of life, it was strange that there was no communication when you saw the video from the Guthries indicating there was at least they wanted to entertain that idea. So if we're getting word right now that this is a potential message from the people or person that took Nancy Guthrie, this is a major escalation and a major development that can change rapidly in the next several hours.
And Jesse, in the next several hours from your perch, law enforcement is doing what right now, as there's a possible new note in this case?
Law enforcement has to, first of all, verify the authenticity of this. They have to speak to the family about this, but they have to keep this very tight-lipped. Completely understandable. The last thing that they want is to do or say anything that jeopardizes the investigation, tips off a potential suspect. I don't care what they tell us. They may have people in mind they just do not want to say. And this is the most important thing from a legal point of view. And I know there's been a lot of questions about, you know, the crime scene and whether it was taped off. They have to preserve and maintain and collect evidence so it does not jeopardize a future prosecution and give anything to a defense attorney that can be used to throw the case out. So this is a very, very sensitive moment in this case.
Jesse Weber, see you later tonight, 11 o'clock Eastern here on News Nation. James Gagliano, thank you. Brian Enton, hang with us here throughout the hour. As we head to break briefly, I just want to read the FBI note in full. This is from FBI Phoenix. They say, and I'm quoting here, the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department are aware of a new message regarding Nancy Guthrie. Investigators are actively inspecting the information provided in the message for its authenticity. While this is one new piece of information, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department are still asking anyone with tips to contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. The FBI continues to offer a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the recovery of Nancy Guthrie and or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in her disappearance. It is 6:14 here in Washington, 4:14 out there in Tucson, Arizona. I'm Blake Burman, the news, and our continuing coverage when we return on the other side of the break. All right, so we are following that breaking news out of Tucson, Arizona, as the Pima County Sheriff's Office and the FBI announcing a new note in the Nancy Guthrie case. Moments ago, deputies cleared the area surrounding her home. Investigators moving on in. Brian Enton reporting he saw the FBI going in as well. Once Brian sees, hears, or learns of anything new, we will head back to him as soon as he sees it. But there are other developments across the globe tonight, including in the Middle East, and the hours-long talks between the U.S. and Iran that ended with Tehran refusing to budge on nuclear enrichment and the U.S. slapping sanctions and tariffs on the regime. This, as new satellite images suggest, that Iran is attempting to sort of build up what was bombed by U.S. military forces last year. Let me show you a couple of images. This comes to us from Planet Labs. So this was one facility that the U.S. military hit back in June of 2025. And you can see the debris there and how that building's gone. That building's gone. But focus on this over here. And then when we come back, you can see here how they're starting to build it back up. That's just one facility. Let's tick forward to the next one because it shows it even more with it. So here you go. This is the Isfahan nuclear complex. All of this is gone, right, in June of 2025. But look over here. You can see how they're just starting to build some of it back. These new images coming into us today. And as all of that is happening, the administration has basically been saying, you know what? We believe Iran is at the weakest it's ever been. Watch.
We have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
That regime is probably weaker than it has ever been.
All right, so that's just some of the backdrop. I sent it out to our NewsNation international correspondent, Robert Sherman in Abu Dhabi. Robert, good evening. So there were the talks, but let's put all of this together. I hear Marco Rubio saying weaker than ever. Scott Bessent saying the rats are leaving the ship. I just showed you the satellite imagery, and it makes me think, as we see the protests and the crackdown, that maybe the Trump administration feels that this is the moment, regardless of the talks, to take some sort of action potentially.
You know, I think that there's something to be said for reading between the lines here, Blake, because, I mean, just listen to the way that the narratives are different coming out of Tehran and Washington. Since those 8-hour-long talks wrapped up, Tehran has been trying to get in front of television cameras as much as possible, to own the narrative, to say that this was a good start. There will be more talks to come. They wanted to talk about nuclear. They said their piece, and they said what they needed to say. The White House isn't saying anything tonight. It is quiet coming from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, aside from just a couple of sets of actions. One of them is that executive order that the president signed just moments ago, which lays the groundwork for secondary tariffs to be slapped on Iran to the tune of 25%. And the second, more images and videos being published by Central Command showing the U.S. Abraham Lincoln patrolling and moving through the Arabian Sea, giving indications the pressure is still there and it's not going anywhere. But the White House is not coming out and saying that they felt as though that these conversations were moving the conversation forward. That's all Iran, as they're trying to get ahead of the narrative as much as possible.
And Robert, I think it's important to note, just yesterday, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, essentially said, yes, there's going to be talks and dialogue, but we have the best and baddest military that the world has ever known. And that was quite the message, too.
And right before that, she said that the president has been very clear about exactly what he wants, which is no nuclear. That was a hard stop statement that you heard from the White House press secretary there. And you have Iran saying today, well, maybe some nuclear. The words that they even used is level of purity to discuss or negotiate. That's not the same as no nuclear. So those are where the two sides stand right now coming out of this.
Robert Sherman, live for us tonight in the Middle East. Robert, thank you. By the way, the United States, if you go all the way back, it actually supplied Iran's first nuclear reactor, which came online in 1967, Atoms for Peace. That was the program launched by Eisenhower at the time. All right, we are following that breaking news, Tucson, Arizona, new developments in the Nancy Guthrie investigation. We've learned of a new note, the FBI now on scene at her house, Brian Enton on that scene as well. Our coverage continues, along with the rest of the day's top stories when we return. Bottom of the hour, approaching 6:30 here in Washington tonight. Top story coming into our newsroom, of course, 4:30 out there in Tucson, Arizona, as the very latest that we understand. It comes to us from KOLD TV, one of the local news stations out there in Arizona, and their news director, or a member of that station, tweeted out the following, posting the following, saying, quote, KOLD has received a new message via email tied to the Guthrie case. The FBI is currently reviewing it. That is all we can say right now. A reminder, our newsroom was among those that received the initial alleged ransom note. If you are just joining us here, a new message coming in within the last hour here. And as our Brian Enton was on the scene in front of Nancy Guthrie's home, law enforcement came in and pushed him and all the other reporters in that area back. Clear developments here this hour, at least potential developments here this hour as we continue to follow the very latest. I want to bring back former FBI Supervisory Special Agent James Gagliano. Our Brian Enton, of course, is on the ground there in Arizona with us as well, retired FBI Director Jennifer Coffindaffer. Brian, let me start with you. Set the scene for us there, 4:30, excuse me, on the dot out there in Tucson.
Yeah, so we've been moved back. It came out of nowhere. The deputies came in and said all the media and everyone on the street has to move. We've closed the street down, and this is for investigative reasons. And then I saw a number of FBI units coming in, looked like evidence response teams. Jennifer would know more about that, but you know they had the like pickup trucks and those vans where they have all their equipment in the back. But there's something else new. You mentioned that this second note has gone to KOLD TV, which is a local TV station here in Tucson that received the first note. I have a little more information from KOLD about this second note, and what they're saying is the IP address is not the same IP address as the initial note, but it appears the sender used the same type of secure server to hide their IP address. The new note contains something the senders seem to think will prove to investigators that they are the same people who sent the first note. So it appears it's a different IP address, but they use the same software to hide the IP address, and there's something in the note where they're trying to make the point that they are the same people who sent the first note.
Jennifer, what does that signal to you? Is that a level of these kidnappers are sort of following a playbook from the past, or no? What does this signal to you?
This is a new playbook. Everything from the beginning of this case in terms of this ransom note coming in 3 days after, going to media instead of going to the family. This isn't a typical way that a kidnapper is going to get the money. And at the end of the day, that's the kidnapper's goals. So this really isn't lining up very well. But you see this second note, I'm wondering if there is some proof of life that accompanied this email in some way.
Why would, Jennifer, upon receiving this note, and the local television station there says they got it, and then of course made the FBI aware, why upon, do you believe, receiving that note, that the FBI would then go back to the home of Nancy Guthrie?
You know, what it makes me believe is there's something in that note that maybe even directed them to or told them about some specificity that would be at that home. So you have to wonder, there's no way the FBI goes back there unless they believe it's something they missed, or option B, it's something they were told to do and go look at.
Brian, what do you make of it?
Look, I think the timing is interesting. Is it just a coincidence that we find out about this second note and it's the same exact time frame where all of the FBI shows up back at the house? I will say I was surprised that they opened up the crime scene in the first place, so it would make sense to me that the FBI would want to come back again and, you know, look for more evidence. I just saw a photo. Someone was back behind the house, and there is an FBI team back behind the house right now with what looks like some neighbors kind of pointing things out behind the house. So it seems like they're not just focused on the inside of the house, but also on the yard and the area around it.
You know, Jennifer, the timing of this, there was in that ransom note, the first deadline was yesterday at around this time. Not exactly, but close to it. And then the second deadline was for Monday. Now, all of a sudden, this new note comes in between those two time periods. What does that say to you?
Well, it really gives me pause because it makes me wonder if the messages that were delivered by the family got through in some way. Because remember, in that first note, they said this is our last communication. Well, now they're saying that this is their second communication, and we're going to prove that. So they're really completely going off script and just seemingly making it up as they go. But I don't think this is a coincidence that they would be back out at the time of the second note.
And Brian, you just described neighbors going to the backyard area, right? Or pointing things out?
Yeah, that's what I just saw. Someone was showing me a photo. You know, it's rough terrain here. I mean, you think of desert, you just think of flat and gravel, but there's a ton of cactuses and bushes and thorns, and you know, these houses are on an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres. So what I saw was a photo of these FBI agents that just arrived within an hour ago. It's probably been now, back behind the house, and it looked like there were two neighbors, people, just regular-looking people, you know, an older couple that looked like they were pointing things out to the FBI in the backyard. So I don't know if that's significant or if they're just going to search the whole yard again. But it's interesting what Jennifer said. You know, the first note did say this was going to be the final communication.
Right.
And now there's a second communication. That is kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, the reason why I doubled back on to that reporting that Brian just had is I was curious what it signals to you that there's neighbors there potentially with the FBI and they're in the backyard.
Two things. One, are they reporting something that maybe has come to mind, even though I believe they would have already been canvassed? Number two, I was wondering, do they have a survey of this house and exactly where land begins and where land ends and property and things? So in other words, if there is some communication that says we want you to look in some certain place, they might not even understand the parameters of what her yard is.
Jennifer, what do you think the rest of the evening here, as there's clear movement there in Tucson, what do you think the rest of the evening, or let me shrink that time window. What do you think the upcoming hours hold here for the FBI and for the sheriff's office there?
Well, but judging by the fact of what Brian said, that they've cleared everybody back quite a ways, I think that they have some work to do here, and they're going to be there for a while. And quite frankly, I hope they stay there. I hope this wasn't something that the people who did this actually came back and did something in the middle of the night and are leaving a clue that it's them. I mean, they need to not release that crime scene.
Brian, I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same wavelength as Jennifer. I'm surprised that, let's just, again, remember, there was a crime scene. They took the crime scene down just days after Nancy went missing. Then they came back out, set up another crime scene, took that crime scene down, and now they're back again. And not only, you know, putting up a crime scene, but moving everybody back a whole block. So it seems, I mean, obviously, selfishly, I'd like to be closer. I want to see what's going on. It makes me mad that we got moved back. But from a police perspective, you know, it makes sense that they just probably need to just stick with it this time.
All right. Brian Ensign, hang with us. Jennifer Coffindeffer, hang with us as well if you can through the rest of the hour. Thank you both. There's clearly developments there in Tucson, Arizona. We continue to follow with the latest. I'm headed back on in to the studio right now. Chris Steyerwalt's going to be joining me at some point here over the next 23 minutes or so. There is news on the front of politics and what Chris has been writing about whole hog politics, his brand new newsletter. Chris Steyerwalt, Brian Ensign, Jennifer Coffindeffer, when we return.
Batia Angar Sargon at her new time, 7/6 Central.
Who and what are you fighting for?
Batia, I like that framework.
I'm so proud of you, by the way. You're like my favorite person of 2025.
Batia at her new time, Saturdays on News Nation.
All right, so we are tracking several breaking developments in the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. The FBI is looking into a new note. Agents are also scouring the crime scene for potential new clues. The local station out there, KOLD TV in Arizona, Tucson, received the newest ransom note, and they are reporting tonight. As you can see here, they say, quote, "We sent the IP address where the note came from to law enforcement. It's not the same IP address as the initial note, but it appears the sender used the same type of secure server to hide their IP address. The new note contains something the senders seem to think will prove to investigators they're the same people who sent the first note. So that is what we continue to follow. Breaking news as it happens. In other news today, back here, at least closer to here and on the corner of Wall and Broad. Stocks closing up today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting a record 50,000 points, closing above that 50,000 threshold for the first time ever. How about that? Green on your screen, love to see it. Wages were up over the last year too, rising faster than the rate of inflation. Good news there. But despite the good news in the market and potentially in your paycheck, there's this. Polls show voters are feeling the economic pinch. Would you look at this polling here? Voters see a middle-class lifestyle as drifting out of reach. What is unaffordable? More than half the country says education and housing, nearly the same amount for health care and having a family. With me now, Chris Steyerwalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. My brother, how you doing?
I'm well.
Good. You have an article out, Whole Hog Politics, which you write.
True.
Republicans' alarming nosedive with white working class voters. So I just showed you some of the good, some of the not so good, and today you are ringing the alarm bell on that.
Well, what's the old PJ O'Rourke quote about healthcare? If you think it's expensive now, wait till you find out how much it costs when it's free. The top three things that were on the stack there in, in the survey work on what people find unaffordable are all three things that the federal government spends a lot of time fixing. It's quote unquote. It's fixing them, and it's going to keep fixing them until no one can afford to buy anything. Look, for people who Americans are now overwhelmingly investors because of 401ks and because of IRAs, and that has changed. So stock market good news is good news for a lot of Americans. But the people who made Donald Trump president are working class Americans. Donald Trump's extraordinary overperformance with, and here we can, white working class voters specifically, Donald Trump got 2 to 1, by a 2 to 1 margin, these voters went for Donald Trump in 2024. And there was a new survey out from Marist, which has great polling, that basically looked at what is Donald Trump's approval rating from those same voters now? And the answer is it's garbage, right? He's underwater on overall approval. He's underwater on the economy. He's underwater on how ICE does its job. He's underwater on foreign policy. And again, these are voters who the president needs, that Republicans need, not just to be break even with, needs them to be 2 to 1. And they're 38% with white women without a college degree on handling of the economy. That's a reflection of what's in the top of that graph there.
Whole Hog Politics. Chris, with the article, you're the best Sunday show in the biz. Who do you got coming up this weekend? Oh,
there it is on the screen. We have Brian Stile, who's got the big voting regulations act that the Republicans want to put through. We've got Glenn Ivey, Democrat from Maryland. And we have Michael Whatley, who's going to be probably going to be the Republican nominee for Senate in North Carolina. Because you know me, and we got to get freaky now about midterms and get into the races next month. Voting starts.
Chris Steyerwalt. Hope you watch him Sunday, 10 a.m. Here on News Nation. I do. Best Sunday show in the biz. Thanks, buddy.
Heck yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, we continue with our breaking news coverage out of Tucson. News Nation's drone. Our drone is now in the air. And you can see the scene there. This is outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Our Brian Enton reporting about an hour ago that the FBI went to the house there. We now know that there's a new note. It was received by a local television station there, and they are giving details about how they received that note and what they've been able to decode. Brian Enton with me on the other side of the break as our coverage continues here on News Nation. All right, we come back on air with a new view. Left side of your screen there, our News Nation drone is now over the home of Nancy Guthrie. If you're just joining us here on News Nation, the media was pushed back as the FBI came in and a new note was sent, and now we are learning more about that new note. That's where things stand right now at 4:52 in Tucson, Arizona this evening on day 6, as investigators are still trying to find the 84-year-old grandmother Nancy Guthrie. I want to bring back in Brian Enton, James Gagliano, former FBI supervisory special agent, and Jennifer Coffendaffer, retired FBI agent as well. Brian, set up for our audience if you can. You're about half a block, you said, down the street from the home because law enforcement moved you back after all of this. And what we're seeing on our screen now is a look from above over the home. Describe to us the resources there and what you saw as they all came back in.
Yeah, I'm so happy we got our News Nation drone up live in the air right there because this is the only way we can see what's going on because they moved us out. And you can see that there's sheriff's deputies in the front right there in the driveway. And then just a second ago, the drone was in a different angle and you could see the FBI trucks that I saw driving in. The evidence trucks are now right in front of the house. Basically what happened, Blake, is we got moved back. They closed off the area. They brought the FBI in and they're clearly doing some kind of new investigation at the house that seems to coincide with the same, time frame of when we learned about this second note that's now surfaced.
The note, Jennifer, came from KOLD, the local television station there. They said it had reviewed a new message via email and that they gave it over to the FBI. They also said the IP address where the note came from to law enforcement is not the same IP address as the initial note, but appears the sender has used the same type of secure server to hide their IP address. So that's part of what the FBI is dealing with right now and the circumstances before them, Jennifer.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at the same MO, if you will, by using this server. It's the same that they're giving another note to a media station. In fact, the same media station that was one of the three that received the notes. So I think that is noteworthy. To me, the biggest thing here is, why do you say you're not going to make any more contact? This is your last contact, and then you make contact. Also, those are definitely ERT vans, so they're doing a full-scale investigation in terms of evidence response.
Yeah, James, what do you make of the timeline? Because initially there was this deadline of yesterday, basically right around this time, and then a second deadline for Monday, but then this new note came in the middle of it.
Yeah, this doesn't match the template that we've seen in kidnappings across the last 5 or 10 decades. And what's odd here is that they set these arbitrary deadlines, and usually what happens is that they're going to exact some type of negative consequences if the police or the family doesn't comply with what the demands are. Blake, this investigation is so different than any hostage or kidnapping investigation I've seen in my lifetime. And here's a couple of things. This is what I can unpack from this. I have long said across the last 6 days, this case is going to be made on digital exhaust, the phone, doing a nice unpacking of that. The cellular analysis survey team will go through that, find out who she was in contact with, who'd been to the house, what family members had been to the house recently, what prison had released prisoners in that general vicinity with a similar MO. I'm going to change it right now. What this tells me, and I argued in the beginning that I thought the crime scene had been prematurely released, too early, turned back over to the family too early. This is what this tells me right now, what we're looking at on TV right now. There is physical evidence that in this note that KOLD got in return to the FBI has suggested from the abductors might be in that vicinity. So this changes the game. You
Jennifer,
still do all the other stuff, but this, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Jennifer, you're nodding along. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with exactly what Gag says, particularly regarding how unusual this is. Every piece of this purported kidnapping does not match up with any kidnapping I've been a part of, studied, or otherwise know about. This is completely off the realm of how these normally take place. I mean, it doesn't even seem like they want the money.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is you make it easy to get the money. You contact the family before anyone else is involved in terms of law enforcement. You give them an easy measure on how to pay them, and you make the direction very clear. That is not what has happened here.
Hey, Brian, we're looking at the front of the house there of Nancy Guthrie's home. You reported at the top of the hour here about an image that you saw of what was going on in the backyard of the house. Can you describe that image and what was happening there with investigators?
Yeah, so there were FBI agents, and someone showed me a photo quickly that were in the back of the house in sort of a wooded area, like around, the brush in the back of the house. And there were two what appeared to be neighbors, just civilians, an older couple with them pointing things out in the back of the house. So I don't know if there's something significant back there that they're looking for, or if it's just the neighbors saying, hey, this is an area you might want to check over again.
James?
Yeah, I'd say, Blake, here's the thing when you look at this from the perspective of the paradigm shifting, as Jennifer was just talking about. It has shifted. Ransom notes don't come on a piece of paper mailed to the Washington Post where somebody cuts out letters from a magazine. This was all done through email. The fact that the abductors are making it public and not trying to secure the money through back channels and keeping law enforcement out of it, to Jennifer's point, it boggles the mind. Last thing.
Yeah.
They're doing this, right? These emails. They can do it through a proxy server. They can get anonymous email addresses or VPN over an IP address. There are numbers of ways that you can avoid detection. And everything we're hearing right now that Brian is reporting on suggests that's what they're trying to do.
James and Jennifer, I got to leave it there. I thank you so much for your time and expertise. Brian Enton, I have no doubt you'll be staying on News Nation for the rest of the evening. Thank you all. Appreciate it. As we've been reporting, a new note. The local television station there is involved with it all. Elizabeth Vargas speaking to the news director in moments. I'm Blake Burman.